Now, what are we doing in the Department of Education? Certainly, we're not sitting around. We've got Arnie Duncan. You heard from my boss, Secretary Duncan. He's committed to innovation and transformation in the K12 schools. We just announced, and I was telling Dr. Maiman this, our first ever early learning fund. And that will be a fund that states can apply for, like a Race to the Top. You know about Race to the Top. And this is a race to the top for early learning. So we hope the legislators and the institutions will really think through being competitive for that fund, because goodness knows our country cannot afford to have 25% of children who are not ready for kindergarten. And when I visited that high school yesterday, one of the students said, if I had only known a second language and not waited until I was in high school to start learning a second language, I know I would be more successful. To which I said, I talked about a lunch I had with Leon Panetta when he was at the CIA, and Director Panetta was asking the Department of Education to produce more second language students who would be competitive for government jobs. And we were all saying at the table, why is it, and this is another silo, when the best time to learn a language is prior to 9 years old, why is it we wait till high school? Yes. So that's... Yes. So that really is part of what our thinking is with our early learning fund. Now for K-12, I told you the bad news. The good news is we have Race to the Top. We have tremendous innovation going on in a variety of states around the country. And what we need, and what I am so excited about, is that 48 of 50 states have agreed to raise academic standards. And with that, we'll be able to say we will have a much better prepared college student and employee for your industries than ever before because of that. Now, it means we're going to have a wider achievement gap, and we're going to have to double up on the access and developmental programs. And I was just, at the Great Lakes Naval Station this morning, and they were telling me that they had an English as a second language and a language development program that the military had used now for the past 10 years, and they were accelerating academic achievement in the language arts. And I was saying, I want to come back and look at that curriculum, and why can't we give that to education? Why can't we benefit, again, another silo that I mentioned, benefit from the high quality information that we have? So raising standards has been very important to our administration, and we have to thank our legislators who are here today for really pushing the envelope on that and supporting that for so many states across the country to say, we've got to expect more, and if we expect more, time and time again, students will rise to the opportunity. Now we've got, in higher education, we have spent a lot of time in the last 2 years with Pell Grants. We want to to make college opportunity available, I say, to the top 100% of students in this country. And no, not everyone will choose to go to college, but if you ask most parents in this country what they want for their children, at whatever age their children are, their child might be 55 years old, a little younger than I, they will say, I hope my child could get a degree, could get a college education, and get a great job, and be a real contributor in my community. So we look at it sort of three-pronged, and we know with Pell Grants how important that foundation grant is for many low-income parents and families and students to be able to go to college. So the great news again is that the leadership in Washington supported the Pell Grant program, and we were able to, with what I think was a very innovative strategy, actually put Pell Grants into the hands of students more directly instead of going through banks and then getting reiterated into servicers and then get finally a check. The Treasury sends a check now, and that has really cut out a lot of bureaucracy and put money in the hands of students. It has not been easy. There's just lots of politics, but again, we're trying to preserve educational opportunity for the top 100% that want to go. And beyond this, the result, so ask me what the result of all this has been. We moved from, in 2009, or 2008 at the beginning, from 6 million students who received Pell Grants in college to today, 9.6 million students. So That really, you should be clapping for yourselves, because really it's the support of our legislature that has enabled that kind of growth in such a short amount of time, a 50% increase. Our job now, Dr. Maimans and myself, is to translate that 50% into college graduates. If we can do that over the next 10 years between now and 2020, we will really be successful. We have also, I've spent a lot of time with the community colleges. We're about to announce grants, really historic grants for community colleges to have the partnerships with the universities and with the business communities that you'll be reading about in the next week or two. We're very excited about that. And that, again, was part of the funding from the Pell Grants that have enabled the community colleges to increase their capacity. We've got, in higher education, about half the students in this country are finishing in 6 years. So when I look at that and I say, yes, students do have to work, it does take longer, and I understand that, but we can't afford to lose half of the students over a 6-year period. If we could get that number up to 75% finishing, we will absolutely be successful. So we have proposed for next year a First in the World Fund, which I put the name in because that's our goal, to be first in the world, and I think most Americans will agree. We want to get back our reputation to really help all of higher education build upon the kinds of practices we're seeing here today. I mean, the Success by Degrees, the dual enrollment program, the strategies that are laid out, guess what? We're going to shine a spotlight on that nationally, because the work that your trustees and your president and your faculty and students to make this happen with the community college partners and the other university partners is absolutely the right direction in which we need to go. We actually prepared a college completion toolkit. That's on the web also. Anyone can take a look at it. We're trying to put everything out on the web, including all kinds of data about how are the students doing, including all kinds of default rates, because we don't want students to have that horrible 4-letter word, unaffordable debt, when they graduate. So the toolkit really has 7 steps. It's not a drug program, but the 7 steps we're asking every state to look at, and certainly Illinois is one of the states that has a lot to be proud of, but many states, we only have 20 states that have set a goal for all of education, from early learning through higher education, and to develop an action plan to increase quality and completion. Affordability is certainly on that list. Aligning standards, the high school standards with college entrance standards, that's a huge amount of work that's going on that you can play a leadership role in. Why is it, again, that we have silos across the country where we've got standards that have had variations, which just has not served our American public very well? You've got to have a standard that people agree on. We also need to really make it easier, as you're doing here, for students to get from one institution to the next. Actually, 2 out of 3 students are getting their education at more than one institution today. So we're looking very carefully at those statistics. We need to accelerate learning. One of the things we looked at the other day in an institution is, what are the tools with technology to help students learn what they don't know, but not waste time on academic information that they do know? And are there some ways that we can help to accelerate the learning process so that you can learn more in a shorter amount of time? We have lots of cognitive psychologists and tech people, all kinds of working in teams, and engineering designers that are saying we can do this differently for the 21st century, and we need to be aware of that. And we're also targeting the fact that our country has 93 million adults that are low-skilled in language arts, mathematics, science. And we only have 310 million Americans. So when I think about that, I feel very responsible for past generations. How has it been that you really didn't need a lot of education to work on an assembly line, but today those assembly lines have become robotic centers, and you do need more education to be there. So we have a huge, huge imperative not to learn from the lessons that we have today, and to really target adults in this country that have had little or no college. So you'll see us having a big push to bring adults who came and got a little college, dropped out, that 50% I talked about, getting them back. I'll highlight the state of Texas. It's in our toolkit, where they had a multi-year program where they went back and got those students into college and graduated and back into a new career, or the same career at a higher level. So there's a lot of things that we need to do. We know that you have a high school to college success report here in Illinois, and you're going to have the first public release of the data this June. I think that's something that every legislator in this state should be very proud of, and we're extremely proud of that in Washington. You also have the Illinois Articulation Initiative, which is a statewide effort to facilitate student transfer, as you're doing here, from one college or university to the next. And you've got a P16 grant initiative, so you were looking at all the ways to accelerate. And the Illinois Community College Board has participated in shifting gears, which is, again, to strengthen that whole realm of adult basic education to get more of those 93 million adults ready for the future, and I think that's just tremendous. You also have in your plan a way to increase the number of adults who actually earn either their degree here at a university, a community college, or get the GED, get a high school diploma or the equivalent. So these are just some of the strides I mentioned about Illinois that I think you as members of this community, as residents of this state, have a tremendous amount to be proud of. And we're just so delighted that Governor's State University and its partners are making such great strides as we've seen here this morning. I'm not going to talk a lot about the dual degree program. I think, our student has talked about that, but I do want to really salute the students who are here today who are participating in the dual degree program. Rafia Mohammed, you gave an eloquent speech. All the students that stood up this morning, you are our future. You are the future of this country, and your success means that we will have a democracy and a society in which we can all take pride, and I won't have to worry that my Social Security isn't going to be there, or my kids, so I don't have kids, so that's why I can do a job like this. But I really worry about the future generations, which is why our Secretary is looking at early learning, K12, higher education, and workforce training. We've got to look at everything all together because, again, we've been so siloed. One part leads to the other, leads to the next, and if we don't change what's happening for kids, we're certainly not going to be preparing the next generation as we need to. So let me leave you with just a couple of final words. In the 2012 budget, which hasn't been passed yet, we know that our state legislators and our federal congressional members will be looking at, what can we afford to do and what can't we afford to do. But our president said we need to invest in education so that every American is equipped to compete with any worker anywhere in the world. And what this means, when I see U.S. Steel bringing back jobs, when I just heard yesterday in the South, they're putting in a call center training program because a very large company understood that they had a plant in India, but it was costing more to source that plant in India, and they could bring it back home because they had found that they won't have the recidivism, they won't have people leaving as much. They'll have a much better stable workforce here and much easier way to keep the professional development and training going. So I think we're seeing some of this start to happen again, and I know we're all very worried about the economy. And I'm a proverbial optimist, so I want to tell you that with the things you're doing here today, our economy is going to prosper once again. And I know we're in a really tough time, but I ask you as Americans, whatever party you're in, let's have some confidence that we can do better than we've done, and we are not going to be a victim to a catastrophe that you mentioned at the beginning. We think we can create an unparalleled higher education system, and I know we can fix the dropout rate in those high schools. And with the new curriculum coming in, I know we can help these students achieve. I saw it in the Great Lakes states that I visited. I saw these schools who were schools that were called failing schools just a couple years ago, making tremendous strides in the basics. So I want to thank all of you. Let me close my remarks by just saying, if we invest in education and do the kinds of things you're doing here today, we will benefit from those investments 1,000-fold. because we will have a future for this country in which we can all take pride. So I thank you for listening, and thank you for the pleasure and privilege of being here today, and thank the trustees and the legislators, the mayors, the state senators, the state congressional members for your leadership to make our country great. Thank you so much.